Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So, as you know, Tuesday means it's Type 2 or Standard Tuesday, and we have a super sweet one to look at today. So this is blue, black, and even a little bit of green, Aetherflux Paradox for Standard, and this one comes to us from Jan Vandervet, probably better known as streamer DZYL. So congrats to Jan on a super sweet deck. A quick reminder before we break down the deck. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So this deck is built around Paradox Engine, and actually you probably remember we did an Against the Odds deck that involved Paradox Engine, using it to generate a ton of mana, and eventually won with Aetherflux Reservoir. And this deck kind of starts off looking the same, but it has some really neat, unique twists thrown in. So Paradox Engine is kind of the engine of the deck. The main idea is we use it to untap a bunch of mana rocks. So we get a bunch of Corrupted Graftstones, Cultivator's Caravans, Hedron Archives on the battlefield, and then whenever we cast a spell, Paradox Engine is going to untap all those, so we can tap them all again, use that mana to cast a spell. Hopefully we're netting mana. We tap 4 or 5 mana worth of mana rocks, cast a 2 mana spell. We're gaining mana every time we do this. This allows us to cast a ton of spells in the same turn, and eventually win with Aetherflux Reservoir. So far, apart from the Corrupted Graftstone, this is almost exactly what we played when we played Paradox Engine for Budget Magic. It's almost exactly the same thing. However, the deck has a really sweet twist, and this deck is using Metalwork Colossus as a dual threat. So, on one hand, Metalwork Colossus is a free spell in the deck. If you get a bunch of Caravans and Hedron Archives, you reduce the cost of Metalwork Colossus all the way down to 0, so it's a free spell that untaps all your mana rocks, which is great. It untaps the mana rocks, lets you tap them all again to generate mana. It also is a free spell towards Aetherflux Reservoir to get some more life, to get up to that 50 or 51 and be able to kill your opponent. However, probably the sweetest part of the deck is we have 3 copies of Morbid Curiosity, which is a card you don't usually see in Standard, but you can sacrifice an artifact or creature for 3 mana, and you draw cards equal to its converted mana cost. So if we can play a Colossus, maybe even for free, we can sack it to Morbid Curiosity and draw 11 cards for 3 mana, which gets us a ton of fuel to keep comboing off, casting our chief stuff to untap all our mana rocks, and eventually win with Aetherflux Reservoir. We have some typical early game stuff, and these are cards that do 2 things. First, they draw us more cards. Prophetic Prism, Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot quite literally draws us a card. Renegade Map draws us a land, I guess, but we have to sack it. They're also just cheap artifacts that we can cast once we have Paradox Engine out, along with some mana rocks, to generate mana by untapping our mana rocks. We also use them as kind of combo pieces. So in the late game, we got a bunch of Prophetic Prisms and Renegade Maps out. We can cast a Brawl's Expertise, bounce them back to our hand, which casting Brawl's Expertise is going to trigger our Paradox Engine, let us untap everything. Then we get to recast one of them for free, which again will trigger our Paradox Engine, let us untap everything again, and then we can just cast the Renegade Map and cast the Prophetic Prism or whatever to get even more untapped. So Brawl's Expertise, the way it might look bad, is actually often netting us a ton of mana by picking up all these cheap things, untapping our stuff multiple times, so it's really powerful in our deck for that reason. It's a kind of an essential combo piece. As far as non-combo piece stuff, Fatal Push, this is just to help us stay alive against Mardu vehicles. It kills Heart of Kirin, kills Winding Constrictor. We also have Anticipate and Glitness Crane to help us dig through our deck and find our combo. Mana base wise, Sanctum of Ugin lets us chain together our Metalwork Colossuses, so once we get a bunch of non-creature artifacts out, the Hedron Archives and such, hopefully we'll have a Sanctum or 2. The first Colossus we cast lets us sack a Sanctum and search up another Colossus, and then if we have 2 Sanctums, we get to do it again, so we can go from 0 Colossi to 3 Colossi, all in the same turn, all for no mana, thanks to Sanctum of Ugin. Inventor's Fear lets us find a Paradox Engine, or if we need to, a Prism or something to help in our combo turns. Aether Hub and Spire of Industry help us fix our mana. When we get to the sideboard, you'll see why this is important. Islands and swamps. The sideboard is maybe my favorite part of this deck. So you might notice that a lot of the slots, more than half of the sideboard, are taken up by 4 Tezzeret's Touch and 4 Tireless Tracker. So the plan here is, after game 1, people see our deck, they know what we're doing, we're trying to combo off with all these non-creature things, we don't really have any real creature threats, or at least early game 1, so our opponent is likely going to take out all of their removal. And then what we do is say, okay, we're going to take out our combo. We take out Paradox Engine, take out Brawl's Expertise, maybe some of our removal depending on the matchup, the Aetherflux Reservoir, all our combo pieces come off. In those slots, we bring in Tireless Tracker and Tezzeret's Touch, and if our opponent doesn't have removal in their deck, these are both cards that can just take over and win the game on their own. Tezzeret gives us a 5/5 attacking on turn 3. Tireless Tracker just generates so much value, draws us so many cards, gets so big, so it has a really sweet transformational sideboard plan. On the other hand, if we're going to just keep our combo and try to tailor our deck to fight our opponent, we can bring in Yahani's Expertise and another Fatal Push to fight against aggro, or if we're up against control, we can bring in Metallic Rebukes and Negates to kind of force our combo through our opponent's counters. And that is blue, black, and kinda green Aetherflux Paradox for Standard, and that's our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.